Back in the day, in the 80s, it was a very limited amount of vaccines. Now we have 60, 70, 80 vaccines, and now they're talking even more vaccines and testing. And why is that a serious threat, and why do we need to understand the importance of the Vaccine Injury Act, and do you believe that bill should be eradicated?
Yeah, absolutely. This idea of immunity is really criminal in itself. And it's not only in medicine and protecting people who do these drugs, but if you're powerful enough, that's what they do behind the scenes, and they bury some of this in the bill.
You know, so many people talk about this vaccine philosophy. It used to be like if you got the vaccine, you were individually protected. Now it's broadening the range of that and saying it's for the herd, it's for the better of the community.
This herd mentality is a dangerous thing, because what they're saying is if you don't get all these shots for the kids, you are endangering everybody else. They claim, and they get people to believe, that you are a danger to the general public. And then they'll come up with one incident and 25 million chances of somebody who had a condition that had no immunity. Of course, under those circumstances, then the individual responsible for himself or the family has a responsibility not to, expose them. But that's just an excuse to mass inoculate everybody, and that's a bad way to go. What I want is the choice to be made in the marketplace by informed consent, by individuals and by families, and the responsibility should be on parents and not the government. I apply this rule to education, the educational system, because it's government education. Look at what's resulted from it. And the parents should be in charge of medical care. They should be in charge of education, and the world will be much better off. But you have to have a firm foundation to understand what personal liberty is all about and associate it and identify it with responsibility. And that's where it fails, because people are conditioned to believe that, boy, if we don't take care of you, you're all going to die, you're going to be weak, and things will be unfair, it'll be a wicked society, and we have to have perfect equality, and they go on. And it's running into roadblocks right now, because people are getting upset, and a lot of us are speaking out like you are about letting people make their personal choices. At the same time, people are going to eventually stand up for their rights, but it's very difficult, because they get control of the whole system, because they'll say, well, you can't go to school if you don't take these shots. You can't do this. You can't have a job if you don't do this. So it's a big problem. So for all the problems I see, whether it's monetary policy or foreign policy, I always go back to a very fundamental issue, and that is the right of the individuals to live his own life as he chooses, as long as he doesn't hurt anybody else. The ability to get out of a system is so important. Isn't education a pretty important thing to make a decision? Why should we let a bunch of clowns in Washington make those decisions? And what about your medical care and all? They shouldn't be allowed to do this, whether it's education or whatever. They should be making their own decision, or they don't live in a free society. That loophole of removing the mandate is getting pretty tough, on the inoculations. It may be that way already on maybe not even getting a driver's license unless you have your shots. Probably if you drive for a big company, they'd probably say you have to have your shots before you can do this. They just don't have an understanding, nor do they have a faith in how freedom works, and they say people are too dumb. But it's amazing that they're willing to accept, a corrupt political system and putting a few of those dumb people in charge of us in Washington to take care of us in medical care and to tell us exactly how we should live our lives. I do still feel good about talking to young people about this issue, and it's going to have to be the next generation or so to get enough people to understand it and become prepared for the chaos that's coming by excessive government intrusion in our lives and excessive government spending. When the government gets involved, you go in the wrong direction. If it's a herd mentality directed by a bunch of bureaucrats and special interests and drug dealers who are, manufacturing all these drugs and immunizations, then it's very much wrong. It's going to cause a great deal of harm.